desire for a new contract, and he had some displeasure surrounding his role within the offense. But according to Jeremy Fowler, Deebo hasn't backed down from his trade request. So I wanted to bring in the man who broke the story originally, Jeff Darlington, and Mike T again to talk this. And Jeff, what will it take, do you think, at this point for Deebo to stay in San Francisco?
You know, I would say, first of all, it's a tough question because Deebo, when the negotiations in the first place, the conversations at the onset of talks between the 49ers and he for a potential contract extension, they went sideways right away. And it was at that point when Deebo essentially said, I want out. And it never has struck me as something where the 49ers can easily apologize and get right back into it. Deebo is a man of principle and has put his feet in the ground on this. So we'll see. I mean, the 49ers are trying. They love Deebo. They believe that he is such a weapon on the field, and they feel like they want to continue to make it right. They have said as much. Can those overtures, can those desires and levels of appreciation cause Deebo to come back to them? That's where we're at in this, and I think time will tell. It will have to come in the form of obviously a massive contract, but also it will have to come in the form of a relationship that Deebo feels like can prosper for years to come.
See, that's very interesting because, Mike, you're our master GM, and you look at this situation, it's not just about money. It's about how he feels about the organization. So take us through how you would talk to Deebo to change his mind, to get him to think this is the place where I need to be.
Ryan, it's about roles in the future, and we want to pair you with Trey Lance, our future quarterback, and we think about the 49ers, it's going to be Trey Lance, it's going to be George Kittle, and it's you, Deebo Samuel. You're going to touch the ball 20 to 25 times a game. It could be in the backfield, down the field, but you're so important to us, and we're going to put our money where our mouth is. We're going to have success on the field. We're going to make you fulfilled off the field. You're the face of the franchise. You're a great person. You're competitive. You're tough. We drafted you, and we want to keep you here for a long time.
Jeff, is that enough, you think?
It is, but I think it's also, gosh, I mean, this is so complicated and personal that I know Kyle Shanahan has expressed it, that he believes that this relationship is reconcilable. And John Lynch has made it clear that he loves Deebo and wants to see him back. It's ultimately going to be Deebo. It takes two to tango, and he's going to have to be the one to come back to the table and feel like, hey, I'm ready to be a part of this organization. And I don't sense that right now that is the case. It could change. I just don't know. I'm hesitant. I think this gets a little messier before it gets cleaner.
Makes for a tough situation for San Francisco. Even though they're saying all the right things publicly, still doesn't seem to be working out. We'll see where this goes. Thanks.
We want to see him land with the team, and it does continue to feel like the Rams are the heavy favorite. They continue to express interest. They want OBJ. He continues to seem like he likes that, but he has no reason to sign right now. He's still recovering from his torn ACL. He's not going to play until midseason. I wouldn't expect him to sign until he knows that he's signing ultimately with a contender. Ndamukong Suh, another player that's out there on the free agent market still. The scenario here with Suh where I think that he's going to wait until probably training camp to decide where he goes. He said it'd be, quote, cool to play for the Raiders. He said that on our air, but ultimately it doesn't seem like that has manifested into any real interest from the Raiders at this point. That could change once training camp arrives, but for now, Suh also exploring his options. Another player that we can keep an eye on as training camp kind of gets going here eventually at the end of this month is JPP. Now, JPP, another Bucs player along with Suh, is really going to do the same sort of deal. He visited the Ravens 2 weeks ago. Ultimately, that didn't lead to a signing, but they'll continue to evaluate. A lot of times with these players, they get to training camp, they see what the position looks like, and then they feel like if they need to invest, they'll explore a guy like JPP or a guy like Suh. So ultimately, they'll land on teams. It's probably just a matter of when.
Oh, yeah, JPP, Suh, any team would like to get those guys, especially at the right price. Thanks, Jeff. Meanwhile, speaking of guys who aren't playing right now, there's Gronk. He announced his retirement last week, and he immediately got to work post-retirement. Here's Gronk posting on this video on his TikTok saying first day of retirement, getting his gritty on with kids at a football camp. Let him go, man. Life is good for Gronk. Jeff, I look at this and I'm like, this guy doesn't need football. He's so happy. Do you think Gronk's going to stay retired, or could we actually see him back this season?
I think we could absolutely see him back. I mean, Gronk also loves money, by the way. And look, he doesn't, and he doesn't love training camp. So if you put all those things together, we can still understand why eventually, if Gronk decided he wanted to go back, he could. But this still is the type of scenario where it's not like he'd be ultimately having to go back to like Cleveland or Green Bay or Minneapolis, some cold weather city. It's Tampa, and he loves Tampa now. He's got family down in Florida, in Sarasota. So I just think that ultimately it would be very easy for him to return. So ultimately, yeah, I could very easily see Gronk back with the Bucs at some point in this season.
You Florida guys just love your Florida. I mean, what's wrong with Minneapolis?
We do.
Green Bay. It's like Florida's
Nothing.
paradise.
Just freezing cold in the middle of December. Ultimately, if you're asking me.
Ultimately,
we
that's the deal.
I'd move further south though if I could, Brian.
What'd you say, Mike?
I said, did we mention no state income tax?
Oh, yeah,
just said
that's
that
right.
Gronk loves money, and why not take 7% more and play for Tampa Bay?
That's right. That's right. So, Mike, do you think that he will stay retired, or what are the chances that he comes back?
100% he comes back.
Oh.
Tom Brady. When he says go, he says yes. How fast and how high. And look, they don't need Gronk for 17 games, guys. They need Gronk in consequential moments. Third down, red zone, coming down the stretch. Maybe it's 15, 20 plays a game. Jeff brings up a great point. A lot of veterans don't like training camp. Gronk doesn't need it. But we need quality plays, not quantity plays. And he could be the difference of them being the Rams down the stretch. So when Tom Brady says, hey, Gronk, it's time to go, I have no doubt in my mind he'll be a Buccaneer.
So you mentioned he could be the difference. Then it makes me think, how could he impact their Super Bowl chances? Because, look, it's a tough NFC. Tom Brady obviously came back to win a Super Bowl, but can he get over the top without Gronk?
I think it's going to be really hard. I think they still have a really good team. I think an underrated storyline, Ryan, is Todd Bowles. I've worked with Todd before. He's a great coach, not a good coach. You think about a guy like Bill Belichick, struggled in Cleveland, takes some time off, becomes a head coach again. The rest is history. I'm not saying that Todd Bowles is going to be Bill Belichick, but why not? Why can't he have a great second chapter as a head coach? This is a team that missed over 47 games on defense, so I think this team is loaded, and Gronk down the stretch only makes them that much better.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying about Todd Bowles as well. I want us to put that graphic back up about the red zone. That was incredible. Because we're talking, what's that number again? 48-0? Let's put that back up. 48-0 touchdown interception ratio for Brady since 2020 with Gronk on the field. So, Jeff, look, I know they're friends. I know with friends you're like, I don't want to be too pushy. But when push comes to shove, we know the NFC is going to be tight. Don't you think Tom Brady says, Gronk, you just got to come back. I want to be friendly, but you got to come back.
I don't think it's that different than, you look at Odell Beckham. We were just talking about him with the Rams. Ultimately, he's recovering from an ACL. Gronk is healthy, but it's sort of the same thing from the standpoint that these guys are at a point in their career where they can sort of wait through. We know they're known commodities. We know exactly what they are when they're at their prime. So if it gets late in the season, just like with Odell when he evaluates the landscape at some point, and Gronk looks at it and says, this makes sense for me, and the Bucs say this makes sense for us, yeah, that could happen. I don't think that the word retirement in the NFL, as we have very clearly learned this year, is an end-all be-all. It's not as conclusive as we might otherwise expect it to be. So Gronk has retired once and came back. He will gladly do it again for the right price and the right incentive.
There you go, the right price, the right incentive. You get to miss training camp, you get to miss all that practice during the season, and you still come back and perform. So, Mike, put a button on it for us. Can the Bucs win the Super Bowl without Gronk?
I don't think so. I think they get close. I think Gronk puts them over the top. And let's learn from the Rams, Ryan. They added a couple pieces down the stretch last year that were really helpful, like OBJ. So to me, this is about how do we get back to the Super Bowl, being the Rams. And I think Gronk's a guy that could really tip the balance. So I like the Buccaneers a lot without Gronk. I love the Buccaneers with Gronk.
Yeah, the Caesars Sportsbook gives Tampa Bay pretty good odds, but not quite getting there. They got Buffalo on top when you look at that. All right, guys, thanks so much. Well, coming up, wait until you hear what Draymond Green had to say about the possibility of a LeBron-Kyrie reunion in L.A. And it's not all good, trust me, folks. Got a jam-packed show.